Good morning, everyone. How's everybody doing today? It's good to see everyone. Welcome. I know we're coming in globally to this event. I'm John Rome, the Deputy CIO at Arizona State University, and just happy that everyone's here today. And I'm seeing that looks like we have a few special guests out there. Alexa, I'm glad that you could make it.
Hello.
That's nice. And Ian, I'm glad that you could make it as well. I'm glad that you had the s'mores ready, as well as I like the flannel. You're calling in from Seattle, so that's awesome today. So also today's session, if you get a chance, if you do have some questions, we're going to probably wait to the end. Add them to the Zoom Slack channel. Also, that if you do happen to have an Alexa at home, you might want to mute it right now because she might go off unexpectedly for you, as we will be talking to her today. And then, as well as, I wanted to make sure I saw the poll results out there as well, and I think that there's 33% of it. We need to do some more adoption. So Ian, we have to figure out how we get them, everyone a dot. So everyone who's answered no, we're going to send you a free Echo Dot. Okay, I'm lying there, but we'll figure out how you start moving dots more. So anyway, Alexa, do you want to kick it off for us today?
Absolutely. Welcome to our session. We are going to talk about voice technology and how it can be used in education. I'm so excited to be here and see all of these beautiful faces.
I agree as well. And I think I'm seeing a lot of people don't have their video on. So I think it's a good chance. If you really want to have Alexa see who you are, now's a good chance to turn on your video as well. And being that there is a summer camp theme here, I have a few questions for Alexa, if you don't mind to indulge me for a minute. So Alexa, do you know how to make a campfire?
No. I tried searching on Google for how to start a campfire with no arms, but it just gave me 20 million matches.
Alexa, you are funny. One more question for you, Alexa. Alexa, what do you do when you run into a bear?
Well, I don't have to outrun the bear. I just have to outrun you, John. Dun dun dun.
Alexa, you're funny. You just need to add a laugh track at the end there. That's all you need to do. So anyway, it's really my pleasure today to introduce Ian. I'm telling you, it's been really fun over the last couple of weeks preparing for this presentation as well. As someone, I feel honored to have him here today. And I'm also just finding someone who's so passionate about education and what he's trying to do to change the world. And then also, for someone who's this accomplished, working with someone who's so modest and so understated, it's just a quality that you don't necessarily see that often for someone like Ian. So it's just, and I think today what you'll see today is really what is the art of the possible with voice. And I think that Ian is really showing that and sort of stretching the limits there. So I'm gonna, well, maybe I better ask Alexa. Alexa, do you know who Ian is?
Oh yes, Ian actually helped bring me to life. At Amazon, Ian was the technology advisor to Jeff Bezos. Unfortunately, he didn't receive his degree from ASU, but rather from Harvard University, so I'll have to talk slower. He led work on Amazon Alexa and holds 24 US patents. To sum it up, Ian is one smart son of a...
Alexa, watch your language.
John, I don't know what the you are talking about.
Alexa, you are funny.
Oops.
So, good one. Anyway, I think I'm just going to ask to, I think we're going to do one more poll and then I'm just going to turn it over to Ian. So anyway, glad everyone's here. I think this is going to be a fun hour.
Looks like, so this is Ian, everyone. Hi. It looks like Alexa jumped out to an early lead, but the poll results, as you probably all can see, was 45% Alexa, 45% Google Assistant, and 10% Siri. So maybe that's a sign of the future. I have seen that Google Assistant has been catching up in the real marketplace. So we'll see what happens. But should I jump in? All right. Well, thanks both to John for inviting me and Alexa for introducing me. I did lead the Alexa and Echo business at Amazon, as well as many others. And it was really fun to be involved in bringing Alexa to life. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about a new company I founded a couple years ago called Bamboo Learning. And we'll go to the next slide. And our mission really is to enable high quality learning for all. And that all is really important for us, leveraging low cost voice devices. And for us, the really interesting thing about voice devices is, certainly on sale, you can get them for $20. And so that makes these devices much more accessible to a much broader audience than, even a tablet, which might be $70 or $100. So that's our mission. And we'll go to the next one. And you might ask, why voice? Why I theoretically could have started any business really to help create interesting education applications, but a couple answers for that. Next slide. One, the voice market is growing really fast, and I think a lot of people don't quite realize how fast it's grown. Now, in January, about a third of US adult population has a voice device. That's grown quite a bit. It grew, 40% a couple years ago and even 32% in the last year. So that's one reason. The audience is just really big. And then for us, a really important issue on the next slide is really the unique and positive experience for students. Particularly, our focus is initially on really the K through 5 age range. And what I know from leading that Alexa team is really early on, children are absolutely demonstrated their love of voice devices. So that was a huge positive indicator. The other big thing for us, and we're hearing this especially during the pandemic, is having the ability to launch our applications with no installation or configuration. You just literally can say, Alexa, open Bamboo Math for our math application, or Alexa, open Bamboo Books for our reading application. So that's great. And then also that the children can use the product without adults having to be there all the time. And we hear from a lot of families that, adults are trying to juggle 7 things during the pandemic, especially. They're trying to work, maybe it's do chores around the house, but then their kids are pulling them to keyboard and other applications. Well, they don't have to do that with what we've been able to build with Alexa. And then a couple other things that, it reduces screen time. They don't have to be in front of a keyboard. We definitely have cases where kids are kind of dancing around the room on video and still answering our questions, making progress. So that's great. Let's go to the next slide. So just a quick summary of the products that we have. We have 5 actually, just in the last 2 years. I won't go into detail about all of them, but the 2 in particular that have done really well since the pandemic started, they've all done really well in the wholeness of time, but Bamboo Math and Bamboo Books, I think because it kind of addresses like that core math and English language arts curriculum. Families and kids have drawn to this, especially since mid-March. And we anticipate that continuing on well into next year. And then, our hope is we can make that continue for many, many years. So let's go to the next one. And one great thing about our products, I mentioned that parents don't have to be sitting next to their child while they're using the application. And so what we did, my co-founder, Irina Fine, is a 30-year educator, developing curriculum, et cetera. And one of the things she said to me really early on is parents need the ability to check in to see how their kids are doing. And so you imagine, you've got a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old, and they're working away at their own pace using our applications. And maybe you're on a Zoom call all day. Well, you can check back in after the kids go to bed and see exactly what they worked on, how many questions they answered, where they might have tripped up. This is an example where you can see a snapshot of our math application and the parent dashboard. So you can actually see word problems. We have over 500,000 word problems, and whether the child got it right on the first try or had a little trouble. And there's an easy red, yellow, green indicator there. All right, next one. Hey, what? John or Alexa, did you put this in there? What the heck? Where?
Okay, I have to come clean. I went on the dark web and I actually found. So some of you might know he worked for with Jeff Bezos. So I actually found these photos out here. Here's one that was great. You can see that. And here's yet another one I found out there as well, Ian. So yeah.
Wow. I look happier in the second one than the first one.
So who are all these people in this photo? I was just curious.
Yeah, no, great question. So right in the middle, obviously, is Jeff Bezos, and I'm right next to him. And actually, one of the Amazon, you might not know this, they actually have 3 CEOs. And on Jeff's other side is Jeff Wilke, who's the CEO of the consumer business. And next to him is one of the early leaders in kind of operations, algorithm, super smart guy named Gung Yu. He actually left the company. And then TJ is on the far other side, and he works closely with Jeff. And Janie is kind of next to me and TJ. And Janie was in corporate communications. She's had a long career, both at Amazon and since then. But it was really fun. This was actually in London. This was an incredible trip. We were visiting all the Amazon fulfillment centers throughout Europe. And I think this was the first day we landed in London and went out to a park to kind of get some sunshine before we fell asleep.
Well, thanks for indulging me.
Yeah.
I couldn't help but to find this and put this to it. But
oh yeah, keep going. Sorry.
Anyway, I have something. Alexa, who's aged better, Jeff or Ian?
John, I should not be saying this about my current boss, but Ian has aged better. Jeff may be a little more buff, but Ian is so handsome he makes me blush, and he is so smart. I think I have a crush on his brain.
Okay.
Oh no, I'm embarrassed.
Sorry, Ian. I'll let you continue. So I didn't mean to usurp your.
I probably have many shades of pink now. I'm gonna have to take a some more break really quickly. Okay. So now, of course, now I have a some more stuck in me. So one of the things that we did with our products, many of you think about Alexa devices and Google Assistant devices as being voice only, but many of them also have really beautiful image capabilities. There's an Echo Show, a Nest Home Hub from Google, or Nest Hub, sorry. And then some of the TV devices also enable great graphics. And when you're working with kids, you really want to use that. So what we decided to do is create really whimsical characters. And here are some both from Bamboo Books and Math. You might have noticed the word problems. We have tarantulas bouncing on trampolines and things like that. So these are some of the characters. Let's go to the next slide. And just some beautiful graphics in some of the fairy tales. One of the fairy tales is called Talking Turtle, and that's actually coming out really soon. Love the graphics on this one. Let's go to the next. And then the classic Rapunzel, and one of my all-time favorite fairy tales. Again, both of these are coming out pretty soon. Three Billy Goats Gruff. Absolutely love that, and it's kind of fun to see what the largest Billy Goat does when he encounters the troll. So those are coming soon to our Bamboo Books products. The next one. And this is an example of how we have the visuals support the graphics. So the problem on the left is something like there are 4 elephants playing in a pond, 3 frogs join them. How many animals are in the pond? And so you can see how kids would both be able to kind of visualize more clearly if they have a screen what that problem's about. So next one. And here's a quick demo from a 4-year-old named Uma. She's pretty cute, so you can see what this looks like.
Alexa, start Bamboo Math.
Naomi has 2 stamps. Her mother gives her 3 more stamps for her birthday. How many stamps does Naomi have in total?
5.
So we love that example. I mean, among other things, she's super young. We actually, we typically recommend our products to 5-year-olds, but there are definitely 4 and 3-year-olds who use them. She's 4. You can see she's literally like doing what you would expect with early addition, just literally seeing, you know, the numbers on her fingers, counting it out. And so we absolutely love this video. All we did was we put the product in front of her. We didn't explain it at all. And we started it for her, and this is the result. So it was pretty cool. We're seeing this type of reaction from many, many families with kids of all ages. So let's go to the next one. This product is called Bamboo Luminaries. We took the idea of really important people in history. Some are really famous, some are not as famous. And these are just some screenshots from that. And essentially every day we have what's known as a luminary of the day, and we pick them randomly. Some, again, are more famous than others. And we'll introduce a few facts. And then you can also take a quiz and things like that, and jump around and listen to information about other luminaries. But I think we're gonna do something interactive with one of the features here called Guess a Luminary. And that's actually where you're taking a quiz by, you know, really getting a few hints about a product, or sorry, about one of the luminaries, and you have to guess. So we're going to try one right now, and we're going to have Alexa help us. Somebody asked if it's free. Yeah, everything's free for right now, except a couple of the books.
Welcome to Bamboo Luminaries. You can play Guess a Luminary or explore other luminaries. Which would you like? Okay. Here are your 3 clues. Clue number 1.
This luminary was a German theoretical physicist.
Clue number 2.
Okay, nobody put
This
anything in the
luminary
chat.
worked in a Swiss patent office for 7 years.
Clue number 3.
This luminary published 4 groundbreaking scientific theories in 1 miracle year.
Who is this luminary?
Okay, the voting is starting on the poll, and we'll let that go for a little bit, and we'll see how we all did. And yeah, somebody asked if it's free. All of our products are free right now. The Bamboo Books has several free stories, and then we have a special series in partnership with Penguin Random House called Step Into Reading. And those are available a la carte, but for the most part. I'll answer a couple more of these. For high school, is the authoring tool available so they can create their luminaries? That's a great question. Right now, no. But what we've thought of is the notion that it's a really good application for kind of, I know when I was in middle school and high school, sometimes I'd have to write about an important person in history. And it's sometimes hard to pick. And so somebody could jump on, you know, a high school or middle school student could jump on, learn about all the different luminaries, and that might help them figure out who they might write a report about. We have thought about authoring tools and what to do there, but we're still a very small startup, and so we have to prioritize, but it's the type of thing we've been thinking about. And then I think do we have one more slide, and then maybe we'll come back to the results. We need a few more people to vote. We don't have everybody who's voted yet on the answer in the poll, but
I hope nobody cheated.
And then yeah, so this is just you guys. I mean, we'll spend some time answering questions right now, but if you have other information you'd like to learn about us, you can certainly go to our website, but we also answer our email pretty regularly. We've got a Twitter and Facebook too. Anyway, really enjoyed just doing a brief introduction. Yep, go ahead and check out all of our stuff. And John, do you want to do the poll results, or?
Go ahead. I think
they're out there. Yeah.
I think Alexa can actually see us as well, but it looks like most of everyone got the right answer. I think there were a few folks out there just trying to trick us, but I think, yeah, I think most of them got this right. So Alexa, do you want to show us the answer?
You are right. You earned 800 points. You can explore other luminaries or play another round of Guess a Luminary. Which would you like?
Right.
All right. That's great. So yeah, you can see that.
Nice job, everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, good. So, Ian, first of all, I just have to say this, and of course, I'll let you go ahead. These are some ways to get a hold of you. And I also, so now's probably a time we're gonna jump into questions. So people have some questions for you, and I also have just a few questions I'd like to ask to get the conversation started. And so I noticed that the focus has really been on sort of this K-6 or sort of the younger audience. Really, how do you see voice augmenting higher ed someday? And like even our President Crow has asked us, John, you need to build an AI tutor with Alexa. So where do you see that? And what are the opportunities there?
Yeah, I mean, what I would say overall is there are definitely many things that we're doing, even within our company, that could be used with much older kids. I mean, somebody on the chat asked about the luminaries and the authoring tool. So, luminaries right now is great for older students. We didn't do tons of detail on how our Bamboo Books application works, but one of the things we're really proud of is kind of this, we can accept open-ended answers. And I think a lot of us are used to voice technology being used like it used to be ages and ages ago. You call the airline, it says, to make new reservations, say 3, or, touch 3, but you could say 3. And so like we might ask a question, we'll play the introduction to Wizard of Oz, and we'll say, Dorothy lived in a log cabin on the plains in Kansas. And then we'll keep reading a little bit more about that. And then we'll say, where did Dorothy live? And we accept answers like Kansas, but we also have to accept answers like Dorothy lived in a log cabin on the prairie in Kansas. So you notice I switched plains and prairie. It's a long form answer with a full question. So I guess what I would say is there's nothing right now inherent in the technology that limits it to younger kids, but you have to think about the application you're going to build and whether older students are going to be interested, and you're able to keep their attention. So, I mean, I think, for example, although there's some issues with this, both on Alexa and Google Assistant, I've always felt like language learning is a great application for a voice device. You think of language labs, well, they weren't very interactive. You listen to a tape and you repeat and all that stuff. So I think that's one for older students that totally works. We should move on. But the only other thing I'll say is that Emerson College out in the Boston area really Alexa enabled an entire class, and they have some really interesting results for that a college age class, and some things worked really well, others didn't, but I'd refer you to Emerson to learn a little more about that.
I know the folks there, so I'll do that. And also just, since you've been with voice since its inception, what's the experience going to be like 5 years from now or 10 years from now? Is it going to be like Star Trek? I mean, are we going to pick that quickly or?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty optimistic. And the reason is that what I've found in, 30 years of technology development is sometimes you hit a tipping point in a technology. And I'll tell you, like back in 1978, when I had an Apple II computer sitting in my bedroom in high school, there was voice recognition software there then. Didn't work very well. But what's happened really since around 2010 is there have been significant developments in using machine learning and artificial intelligence to make voice recognition just much, much better. And we've seen an acceleration of the capability. So what I would say, I mean, part of my answer is I have no idea. It's going to blow you away of what happens in 5 or 10 years. But I think having long conversations where you can go back and forth with a voice assistant, I'd like to go on a trip in Asia, and the answer will come back, well, do you like beaches or mountain climbing? And, you know, you can imagine like a fully interactive experience like that, where you might talk interactively for 20 minutes and then the voice assistant will go off and create a trip with different options of hotel rooms. Like that could totally happen. I think there'll be some areas in education where it'll work really, really well for supplementing what faculty and teachers are providing. But I don't think it's in that time frame going to really replace educators in any significant way. I think it's more, think of it as supplementary.
Yeah. And that's what I've heard a lot, really, that voice really helps augment that experience of everyone. So you kind of confirm that there. So, you know, when you were bringing Alexa to life, you know, some of these are indulging me, but when was that aha moment that you realized that voice was this next technology disruptor? So I remember when the GUI came around on my first Apple back in the 90s, and then I remember when the internet came in, was it 1995? And then the iPhone came in 2007 or whatever. And then when voice came, it was like, you knew that was going to be the technology disruptor. But when did you get the aha moment of like, yeah, this is really going to change the world?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd probably point to two things. I'll try to do them quickly. I mean, one was actually before we had decided to do the Alexa and Echo product, but it was right in a formative stage when, you know, right before. It was one of the things that caused us to think about building it. And that was, we did a technology demo that allowed the user to ask for any song or album. And of course, the demo was great because Amazon had the huge catalog of music. And so you could ask for, you know, give me songs by Musical Youth. And it would probably play their only major hit. Or you could say, you know, play Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen, and that would work. So like that worked, and it worked really early. At way better than 90% accuracy. I mean, even in a demo, it was actually pretty amazing. And then, so that was before the product launch, but it was kind of when we really started thinking about it. And then the other one was interesting. There was a hack day. With a hack day, some people are probably familiar with it, some aren't. Basic idea is you take a team, usually they've been working really hard and they just need a break. And you say, okay, for 2 days, just go build stuff using anything you want, and we'll vote, you know, we'll kind of give out awards like most innovative, you know, best use of voice technology, blah, blah, blah. And so one of the groups at the hack day integrated a prototype of Alexa with lights, a fan, a stereo system, and all. So it was basically smart home technology. And we, you know, it's another one. Smart home technology has been around forever. The systems are really complicated. Well, as soon as you stick a voice assistant in front of it, and you're able to turn on and off the lights really easily using your voice, that was a big additional aha moment. So
That's great. And for someone who, I think I have 11 Alexas in my house, it took a long time for my wife to adopt. She's actually like okay with it now, but before she made us turn it off at the dinner table when we would ask it random questions. So she actually now, I secretly hear her playing music and listening to NPR news every day. So I think we've had the adoption. So the other thing I can't, you know, being that you worked closely with Jeff in the early days, you know, do you have like an interesting or fun story or observation from those times?
I think, I mean, I mentioned that trip to Europe, so I guess I'll mention a couple little tidbits from that that were just really fun. Our first stop actually, I think, was in Scotland, and I don't know if any of you have seen Braveheart, but you know, it's a pretty fun movie where you know it's a pretty upbeat, well, depending on which parts, but it's an action movie. But it's historically, I think, reasonably accurate. So I said, you know, Jeff, have you ever seen Braveheart? And he's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, oh my God, we're going to Scotland. We have to watch Braveheart. So a bunch of us, you know, right before the trip, watched it, and he was like standing up in the scenes where, you know, Mel Gibson is charging on horses against against the British and stuff, and Jeff is like, go, go, go. So that was pretty funny. And he was so excited that, you know, I introduced him to this movie, and I think I'd only been in the TA job like a month or something, so he was very happy about that. And then so anyway, that was probably the best story. I'm sure there might be other questions. So.
All right, and I know that Robin asked me if do all 11 answer at the same time. Well, in the early days, there was a little bit more problems that they would have a hard time in sort of distinguishing each other, but now it's actually really good in terms of some of the microphones and that. But the other thing, so it's almost like scary though, because sometimes I hear something in the other room will answer my question sometimes. So it seems like Alexa is getting a little bit better at listening as well. And I know that there's always that fear of—
I'm getting smarter every day.
Thanks. But so, you know, another question too, Ian, like I know that everyone is worried about sort of the creep factor or sort of the privacy issue of listening in. And so how do you really address that? Or, you know, as parents are concerned about, you know, that's going to be a non-starter of having that listening device in your room.
Yeah, I mean, the simple answer, if you're a parent who, you know, like to have your kids engage with Bamboo, is both the Amazon devices and the Google devices have a hardware mute button. So you basically press the button and it's not listening. So, you know, I know it makes a lot of families much more comfortable. Just turn it off. And you don't have to unplug it. It's still on, but, you know, it's muted and it's not listening. And then, you know, if it's time for math lessons, you just turn it on and they can use it at that time. And then, you know, you can instruct your kids to turn it off, or you can make sure when they're done, you go turn it off. So that's the simplest one. You know, what I can also tell you with a little bit of inside baseball is, at least inside Amazon, I'm sure Google is probably pretty similar, right? Although I can't absolutely vouch for this. The goal with, other than just responding to customers' requests, responding to users' requests, the goal of listening is, and kind of recording stuff, is to aggregate what people are saying so they get smarter and smarter at being able to answer correctly. And I do know that it's anonymized. I also know that you as a consumer can delete your old voice responses. And I'll tell you that the things that have been reported in the press where, you know, somebody didn't realize Amazon was listening and it started doing weird stuff, I could guarantee you those are unintentional. And I know of many instances, this was after I had left Amazon, where those happened and Amazon immediately went in, and it's basically a bug, and they go in and fix it. So there's no, like, yes, there are cases in the industry of companies doing things that, you know, are, and I don't mean the voice industry per se, but in the tech industry. But I really don't think that Amazon or Google are intentionally doing anything other than trying to make the product better. And they do give you control to delete your old voice stuff, and you can mute anytime. So.
Yeah, so I think there's always going to be that sort of those adopters who are still concerned about privacy. I know we gave them out as gifts to friends, and some of them loved it, some of them never took it out of the box. So you know that. And then when we put 1,500 Echo Dots in a residence halls 3 years ago, and I remember we were about ready to roll it out, and our legal group came back and said, you know, what is the worst headline possible? And it was, ASU puts 1,500 listening device in a residence halls. And we're like, they told us to stop the project. But then we found out that our president, Dr. Crow, had pre-recorded something with an excitement of we're going to put him in a residence hall. So we got the green light to go forward. But that's a good story out there. So anyway, there's another question out there from Elliot saying, can you please touch on how this can apply to higher ed?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think you have to figure out the correct applications. I think somebody else on the thread said things like vocabulary, or there's they noticed like a Bamboo GRE. I mean, I could imagine I was a physics major in college, and you have to learn a lot of different facts, and that's not the most important thing to learn in physics or any other subject, but sometimes you just have to learn those facts. Sometimes you have to learn certain vocabulary, and I think those are actually really easy to do with third-party voice applications right now. I mean, if somebody said to Bamboo, can you go create a biology vocabulary builder, we could absolutely do that. It's not right now in our purview because we really wanted to focus on younger kids, but over time we absolutely can imagine doing these same types of applications for older and older students, and ultimately adults. It doesn't even have to be, strictly speaking, like formal education. So I think from my perspective, you just have to think of each subject area and, how can you make, what I would say is voice is really good for tasks where the user has to learn something, and, having somebody quiz them all the time as a person is not really that practical. And, one of the things we were able to do just doing permutations is 500,000 different word problems in math. And so no human is going to go come up with 500,000 different word problems. It's like they can't, right? And so you can imagine like pouring numbers of questions in, that some of them can be individual questions, some can be based on a formula. You could probably, it would be trickier because physics is so visual and some of the other higher ed sciences are so visual, but you could envision building an application that would do 500,000 different types of physics questions or chemistry questions or biology questions. You'd have to, some of them would have to be math based, but it's possible.
That's good. That's great. So I'm looking out to any more questions out there as well. I know I have a few more, but I don't want to take things over. But the other thing is, what's your favorite question to ask Alexa?
One of mine that's kind of fun, and we actually used it yesterday. It's Alexa, how far is it from point A to point B? So what we were trying to figure out is like, is it further from Seattle to Miami than from, let's say, someplace up in Maine to Los Angeles or San Diego, I think we used. And it is, and you can ask you have to be careful though, because we asked how far is it from Seattle to Houston, and compared that to something like Boston to Miami or something. And Alexa came back with like 700 miles, and we're looking at it and we're like, that's not right. Something's wrong. So we had to say, how far is it from Seattle to Houston, Texas? Because there must be some other Houston that's, in Wyoming or something. But Alexa wasn't smart enough to say Houston, Texas, or to figure out we were talking about Houston, Texas. But you can specify. The other one that was pretty funny in the early stage is we were testing like questions about people. And so I asked Alexa before it had launched, how old is B.B. King, the great blues musician? And it came back and said, B.B. King is 153 years old. I'm like, okay, guys, this is a bug. So I sent it off, and it was off by like, I don't know, it was off by an exact number of years, 60 or 70 years, something like that. And it was weird, but they figured out why and fixed it. So
That's great. So what are some of the big breakthroughs that you've seen over time? Because I've noticed, like, I remember in the early days, I would ask a question, well, who is B.B. King? And it would give me an answer. And then I would say, how old is he? It didn't understand the context of the prior question. So I say to Alexa, so what are maybe one or two breakthroughs with Alexa that you see? And then what are some that you think it will need to do to really sort of move to a next level?
Yeah, I do think, and they've made some improvements on that sort of back and forth, longer conversation. It's still not there yet. So I definitely think that's one. I also think, it's kind of the notion of a feedback loop. Like, I'm sure we've all had this experience both with Alexa and Google Assistant, where you ask a question and it's just totally off base. like you ask, I mean, that in some ways that one is, how far is it from Seattle to Houston? And like, it could be smart enough when I'm like, oh my God, that's not right, to realize that like, I didn't just react with no, I said something else, which is actually giving it feedback.
Mm-hmm.
And so being smart about, right now you kind of have to tell, like, was that what you wanted? Did Alexa answer your question? I think occasionally comes up when you ask a pretty open-ended question. And if you say no and keep following it, you can help Alexa a little bit. But I think they'll probably get a lot smarter, both at Amazon and Google, about when the user's giving feedback like that's not right, to follow up and figure it out. And I don't think they're doing a great job with that now. They have a lot of other stuff on their plate, but I think that what that will do is it'll cause the answers to be smarter and smarter and smarter at a probably eventually an exponential rate. So that's my thought on that one.
Right. That's great. So I know that we have looks like we have about 5 minutes left, and maybe it's time for maybe one more question. I'm going to challenge the audience to see if they have a question for Ian to send his way. So
I'm just scrolling back on a few of these. Yeah, I did say we were focused on K5, so that's one. Looks like a new one came in.
And Victoria has a question for you. How did you get the idea to create Bamboo?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, when I left Amazon, I hadn't written software myself personally in 25 years. So it started out as just a fun project. And I was playing around with it. I learned a lot about how to code using Amazon Web Services. And then I realized I could actually use it to create lessons for kids. And then Irina, who worked with me in the early 1990s, has, first of all, she's a great friend, but we'd also worked together. And she's an absolute expert in education. She taught for many years. She developed curriculum for many schools, particularly in the K through 5 age range. But she'd actually never used a voice device. And so we started talking, and I did a demo of a very, very early version of Bamboo Math that I had written. And one day she woke up and called me and she said, well, why don't we do something that teaches music? Because it's a great music device. And also it doesn't hurt that Irina was trained in the former Soviet Union as a concert pianist and musical performance and music theory. So she could do all of the curriculum for music really easily. And so I figured I would prototype it with my very poor software development skills. And then we'd get a real software developer to do it. And it turned out that I was actually able to ship the first version. And she she's very smart. She'd say, I'd get stuck and I'd be really frustrated. And she'd say, just try a little more. And so anyway, we built it. We actually showed it to Amazon. They really loved it just because it was so different. What we do is we play a selection of music, starting with kids' nursery rhymes and go all the way up to classical music. And we ask questions about it. And then we play another piece. So you can really learn about chords and scales and tempo and all that stuff. So when that's kind of how we started. And since she's passionate about education and I'm passionate about digital devices and content, and also about particularly kids and how they interact with education at a young age. That's why we created the company. And it's been incredibly fun, more fun than we ever imagined. And it's just been a couple of years. So
That's great. That's great. So it looks like Robin has a question. She has her hands raised. Sorry, we just noticed that.
That's okay. I was wondering, I saw a video regarding Alexa being able to recognize a package for somebody that's visually impaired. So that's, I guess, a visual type of an Alexa device.
yeah.
How far out, are those common? going to replace these voice-only ones? And can you describe that process and how it might be useful?
I can even show you one. So this one, can everybody see that? And I'm not sure this one, yeah, I think it does have a camera on this one. This one is available right now. It's called the Echo Show 5. It's pretty inexpensive. I want to say like 70 or probably between $79. Is that right, John? Anyway, and so just because it's a little more expensive, the audio only ones, which, you know, you kind of saw a visual of that in the presentation are around $50, but some of the older models are on sale. So what I would say is it's really just a question of price, and almost always there's going to be products with a screen are going to cost a little more, but you know, the visual ones will go down in price, and I think they'll be more and more pervasive over time. I also think both Amazon and Google and you know, potentially others like Apple and Samsung, maybe even Microsoft, I think you're going to see kind of this notion. John talked about the Star Trek computer, and you know, many people have never seen Star Trek, but there's the basic idea is you can sort of talk to the room, and the room will tell you the answer, and you don't even necessarily in that world have to think about where the voice device is. And I think if you have that and screens kind of in your home, it might be a television, you know, that's the most obvious one in a home, but outside of the home, you know, if you're at a train station or at an airport, and you just say, you know, how do I get to my gate? You could talk to sort of the airport. You'd actually be talking probably to the microphone in that screen, but it would know who you were. It might have to ask you a question, you know, give me your record locator, and then show you exactly on a map how to get there. So what I imagine is, as voice becomes more and more pervasive, we won't necessarily have to have the voice device and the screen in the exact same place. They can be near each other. And that could be true in your home, or it could be true in a business, or it could be true in a sort of public or semi-public area like a train station or an airport. So we believe that visuals are very important. Everything we build now has both audio and visuals, but you don't. Our mantra is you don't have to own a screen to use our products. They're just a little bit better if you do have a screen. So.
Right. Well, great. Thanks, Ian. And I think this has been really great. So, and again, thanks for joining Learning Human this year. This has been a great addition to the program.